Desert wind knifed through the roll-up door, sweeping grit across the concrete, engine oil tangling with hot metal in the air. The wall clock jumped to 21:10 the same instant my back slammed the floor and the motion light flickered like lightning. The shove knocked me off the wooden step. Pain flared under my ribs, vision whited out, felt like the whole flight line blew at once. "Hold her," a dry woman's voice said, sharp as a razor. "End it. Don't let her speak." I knew that tone. Linda never yelled. Linda issued orders. I dragged air into my lungs, each breath snagged on bone. Warm blood slicked the floor and ran along a groove toward the steel rack labeled Section A. The ceiling fan ticked, blades furred with dust like a black hawk waiting. Two shadows fell over me, one heavy, wavering, one straight as a ruler. My dad's big hand shook on a pair of pliers, thumbs stained with grease, eyes cloudy like an old windscreen. Booze still clung to him. Behind him stood Linda, hair combed skin tight, a fine veil that smelled too loud to belong at a funeral. "Dad," I said, the words snapping like a wire. He looked away and drifted sideways, his shadow swallowing a tote marked spare, hid lines. I pushed up, palms skidding through oil until my fingernails found the dust-clean rectangle where my mother's wings box should be. Gone. Only a perfect outline left in the grime, fresh. Cold slid down my back faster than the pain. "Linda, where's the box?" My voice came out cracked. She didn't answer. She stepped closer to my dad and breathed, almost tender. "Daniel, finish it. She'll wreck everything if we don't do this tonight." My knees wanted to lock the way basic training taught me. Left knee tucked, right arm clamped my ribs, left hand searching my crew jacket for my phone. Found the paracord bracelet instead, the one Mom braided for me. That small pressure steadied me, like tapping a nose cone before toe out. "Dad, look at me," I said, pulling breath through glass. "We're just talking. No one needs pliers." His eyes drifted, lashes twitching, then fixed on the clean red circle blooming on my shirt. The man who taught me a torque wrench from a breaker bar, who tuned my ear to APU rumble versus bleed air hiss, was standing on a narrow ridge, his daughter on one side, a silk-soft command on the other. Clack. Metal kissed concrete. Just a door hook, not the pliers, like some other door closing far away. Linda tilted her head. "Told you, don't mix family with the Air Force," she said, smoothing the edge of a too-bright blazer that didn't belong in a dark shop. It reminded me how she walks into a living room like stepping on stage. She agreed already. She signed. She's just backpedaling. I laughed once, bent by pain. Signed what? Pages of my LES flashed in my head, every dollar of the re-enlistment bonus mapped like bolts in a tray. "I didn't sign anything," I hissed, and the hairline crack across my ribs felt like it widened a notch. Outside, a tug rolled past on the ramp, base heartbeat at 2112. Sand lifted at the threshold and fell against my boot. I scanned the bay tool chest, a coil of hose, an eye protection required placard, and that empty space where the wings box should sit, black as a dead star sucking light. Worth nothing to anyone but me. But to Linda, it had become a deed to a small country I carried out of childhood. Checklist, I told myself. Control your breath, control your angles. Like Bella crawling under an airframe, order first, fear later. Count. 1, 2, 3. "Daniel," Linda said again, softer. Dad lifted the pliers, set them down, lifted them again, the jitter of a clock with a dying battery. The safety cord I'd given him at New Year's still circled his wrist. The plastic tab winked like it remembered me. I changed tactics, lowered my voice to flight line hush, the kind you use on headsets. "Dad, it's 21:15. Patrols swap around now. Step outside with me 2 minutes, then we come back. Nobody touches anybody." Linda snapped toward the door, heels ticking the concrete. "There's no patrol," she smiled, thin as sheet metal. "No one's coming. We finished tonight." Pain poured hot into my chest, vision stuttered, then sharpened strange. Fresh tire mud by the door, a yellow ribbon thread snagged on a shelf edge, too much perfume braided with oil. A Linda error. She always overdosed when she thought she owned the room. I rolled, pressed my bloody palm to the floor, and got a knee under me. She strode in hard, stooped close, and I finally saw the bottom of her eyes, not rage, not fear, calculation. "I'm being honest, Eva," she whispered in hotel elevator English. "End this. Now." I stared up at a ceiling pocked with peeled paint, countries torn off a map, and thought of blue taxiway lights running the spine of a runway. Mom smiling behind sunshades, pinning wings to a flight suit. I'm not an airplane, but I do have a checklist. Survival, shield the chest, keep the airway, find an exit. "Dad," I said again, this time packing the word with afternoons he taught me to seat bearings with the iron dust sweat of the shop off Route 9. He flinched, mouth opened, closed. Linda stepped nearer, a key glinted in her hand, big ring with a little R fob, same letter I'd glimpsed on an invoice I hadn't reconciled yet. A far siren sliced the night, faint as a coping saw. Maybe not base patrol, maybe crash truck from the auxiliary runway, maybe nobody. To me it was a ratchet forward. I flicked my eyes left. On the shelf, just beyond the dust-clean rectangle, a scrap of paper read. 21:30 load-in. Slanted, hasty hand, I knew it. I swallowed a groan, shifted weight to my left leg, and dragged my cap down with a tacky, blood-slick hand. "Wrap it up," Linda said. "Daniel." Dad stepped. His shadow swallowed the light. My world narrowed to metal taste and the scrape of shoes on concrete. Something clicked deep in my ribcage. I closed my fist around the paracord, felt nylon burn my palm, hauling me off the ledge. Somewhere out there the runway was breathing, warm, long, cut into even green bars. I spoke so only he could hear. "I'm your kid." His grip stalled on the pliers. The motion light popped on again like a screenshot. Linda snapped toward the door. Some tiny noise, a wind-kicked soda can, was enough to make her blink. The opening was no bigger than the safety tab on my dad's wrist. The room tilted 1 degree. I took a short breath, cinched the pane like a brake line, and slid across the floor into the black slit between 2 racks. A soft curse tore out of Linda. Ahead, at the end of the aisle, a thin blade of light showed a side door, unlatched. The second hand crawled past 21:16. I pressed my palm to my chest, listened to my heart knock under the fan tick, the sand hiss, the clatter of the dropped tool. I didn't know who had called whom or whose siren that was, but I knew this. If I got through that door breathing, I would track every dollar, every signature, every email that made Linda sure she could turn my shop into her stage. And I'd take back my mother's box, wherever it was, buried in someone's shiny props. I shoved the side door. Night air slapped my face with burnt grass heat. Shoes scraped behind me. In front, the runway's shadow opened like an invitation. I ran. Somewhere down the line, the future will rewind to this moment and call it the beginning. But at 21, 17, all I had was blood on my shirt, ribs on fire, and a frozen order I'd just thrown back into the dark. I put wheels on Falcon Ridge at 06:10, sky stretched pale like a tarp over the desert. JP8 clung to my hair. My ears still rang from last night's shift on a temp runway out of state. The shuttle dumped me by the hangar. I dragged my roller across concrete breathing heat, palmed the sleeping nose of my jet out of habit, and cut into the locker bay. 06:22, I stopped cold. A red seal banded my locker. Decal expired, admin hold. A crooked notice barking. Contact housing office to update vehicle and records. Locker, vehicle, paperwork. 3 boxes that don't belong together unless someone pokes the right square and the whole base starts moving. I called the number at 06:28. Female voice, script smooth. "We received a file from Linda Morgan 08:15 last week. Your car was impounded for an expired decal." My blink was audible. "Linda." I'm on the flight line. Release my car, I said, voice flat as a wing. Can't, she answered. Only the filer or the owner can retrieve. The filer is Linda. Sweat ticked down my neck. 0631, no argument. Checklist. By 12:40, after signing the aircraft to swing shift, I sat in the DFAC with rubbery eggs and a half-assed coffee and opened my LES. Re-enlistment bonus showed processing, this cut off, but my bank balance was a desert. I flew my thumb through the app, no pending deposits. I scanned the note field, DFAS, re-enl, bonus ACH, and the routing numbers I knew by heart, all correct except for the 0 that wouldn't budge. Cold traced my spine. I screenshotted, emailed it to myself with a timestamp subject, less 12XX 12-40. I anchor moments the way I torque fasteners, clicks, not vibes. At 14:15, I hit personnel. On the roster board, my name had been kicked to pending reassignment temp with a lemon yellow sticky, awaiting document update, housing/vehicle. Briggs drifted behind me, cologne clean as tap water. Don't sweat admin, he said, patting the board like a horse. Focus on your jet. I turned. Who moved my name? He smirked. The system. I snapped another photo of the board. It felt like someone had nudged my nose gear off center, half a degree that becomes a desert if you don't correct. At 18:05, I took Harper's loaner sedan home. The front yard was cast iron, grit on the steps. Kitchen door open, Linda in a striped apron like she hosts a cooking segment. Home early, she chimed, chin toward a pan of ribs. Daniel's out back. Don't bring shop smell to the table. I slipped past into the living room. Mom's old bookcase sat by the window. The wooden wings box should have been middle shelf on a yellowed doily. I reached. Empty. Just a dust-clean rectangle, a bright thumbprint where someone had lifted it not long ago. My heart thumped like a nose wheel hitting paint. Linda, I said, turning, where's my box? She didn't look up. I put it away. You just got back. The house is messy. You'll misplace it and make a scene. Where? Somewhere safe. Don't mix family and the Air Force, Eva. Dad came in at 18:20, t-shirt powdered with sawdust, a beer bittering the air. You're back, he said, eyes skipping past me to the meat like scissors cutting crooked. I wanted to ask about the box, but his pink nose and the scratch at his neck rerouted me. My car got towed. Who filed for me? He shrugged, hinge creaking on a door trying to close. Linda handled it, he said. Faster. Linda set a knife on the board, metal on wood with a dry talk. See, work at the table again. 3 bites and I bailed to my room. Closet cracked, Mom's flight suit photo in its frame still there, but the glass edges gleamed like someone had over-polished after fumbling it. Bottom drawer, where I keep bank copies, was thin. I sat, spine straight like on the crew stool, and opened the laptop to my secondary email. In a folder called Financial sat a chain I didn't recognize. Eva agrees to authorize bonus disbursement via event partner, DocuSign attached. I have never used that address for DFAS. The header rode through a relay. The sender alias was 1 letter off my official address. I went still for 20 seconds, then started logging like a crash recorder. 18:05 home. 18:20 dad in kitchen. 18:42 last spoof email. 18:50 Linda locked the garage. The metal scrape traveled the wall into my ear like a parking brake set too hard. At 21:10 my phone buzzed. Harper, your car's still in impound, but the shop's saying some bonuses route through an event partner next week. Me, who said that? Harper, Briggs told me not to gossip. In the window glass, my reflection looked less like the kid who used to nap in this house and more like the NCO who inventories parts in the rain. I took photos of the room, corner by corner, like a crime scene someone had overcleaned. At 22:35, Linda knocked and let herself in. She carried a cream folder. Here, she said, Authorization so we can release the bonus quickly. Sign it, skip the system. I'll notarize tomorrow. I measured the folder by eye, not thick, but rigid enough for a palm print. I need to read it, I said, voice straight and bright as a runway stripe. Trust me, Linda said, eyes skating toward the bookcase. I'm keeping your things from getting lost. I watched her 3 beats, then nodded. Tomorrow. When the door clicked, I pulled a small notebook from my pack, clipped in Mom's old 07 pencil, and wrote, checklist, less photo, bank statement, email header, locker photo, roster photo, housing call log, wings box missing, names Linda Briggs. Added a line, chain of custody, make duplicates, timestamp, store safe. At 23:10, I killed the light and listened to the house breathe. Like an airplane, a house has its noises, pipes ticking, wind threading, footsteps traveling. 23:22, garage door opened. I lifted a lid but didn't rise. Some nights you lie still and listen to the system run to learn who touches what when they think no one's watching. I touched the paracord at my throat. Nylon thin as a private taxiway Mom laid across my palm. I slid into an even cadence and closed the day. 07:30 tomorrow. Start with DFAS and internal audit. I didn't know where Linda's gaze would be by then, or who Briggs would be texting, but I knew this. My name had been erased here, not in pencil, in procedure. And procedures leave ink. All I have to do is follow the line. 05:40 the next morning, the desert felt like bare steel fresh off a press. I hit the hangar an hour early, snapped on the tool bay lights, and the ratchets clicked awake like a skeleton of gears. Bottom drawer out, cloth pouch open, GoPro powered, battery green. I set motion detection, angled it 45 degrees so the stainless cabinet across the aisle became a second mirror for anyone trying to hug the blind spot. 05:52, I logged out loud. Camera in drawer 3 aimed at side bench, reference time 05:52, date stamped. I slid the drawer back, tucked the cam behind shop rags, left a nickel-wide peephole. 07:30 before the flight line turned over, I borrowed the break room hard line to pull my LES and bank shots. DFAS, re-enal. Bonus ACH showed processed, but the recipient wasn't me. It was Ridgeline Productions, LLC. Sand poured into my chest. The banking app blocked detail, view by account owner only. Fine. I screenshotted each step, saved to RB evidence/0730, file names with date time. Maintenance rule, before slash during slash after photos so nobody argues states. 09:05, Briggs glided in, shirt ironed flat, smile disinfected. Morgan, APU bleed leak on bay 12. He tossed a work order. Copy, I said, catching paper, clocking the square-faced watch on his wrist, odd model, easy to mark like paint on a torqued bolt. He pivoted off, aftershave trailing like a hotel hallway. I breathed 3 counts, snapped the work order. Evidence doesn't live only in email, it hides in ordinary paper. By noon, sun carved blades of light through the hangar doors. I was on my knees under a Bella pan, hands in grease. Every torque click. I repeated tonight's checklist. 23:40, continuous recording, 00:15, loop the shadow lane behind pallet row, 00:25, watch the side door. Logic said maybe nothing. A decade on ramp said systems that quietly bump your name to pending don't move themselves. Someone pushes. 16:50, Harper slipped me the loaner sedan key for another night. Shop guys are whispering the event partner scheduled a load-in after dark, she murmured, eyes darting like even the air might eavesdrop. Who said? Not sure, might have started with Briggs. I nodded, handed her back a steadiness I wish someone had given me when I was airman new. 21:58 I came back. The steel whales slept, breathing in ceiling fan ticks. I killed the center banks, left 2 rim strips lit so passers-by would think the bay was dead. 22:10, I shot a self-email. Starts of 22-10, muted my phone, buried it deep. 22:37, a dolly rolled, metal lips smacking. 22:52, a shadow crossed the racks. Male, wide-shouldered, short stride, shoulders drawn, not Briggs. I kept my head bowed like I was checking a hydraulic flex line, eyes sharp as when I measure gear door clearance. 23:40, continuous record on. Inside the drawer, the GoPro caught motion, blinked once, drowned in dark. I took the steel column for cover, sighted the soft reflection in brushed metal. 23:58, a pickup without base tags slid to the side door, headlights cut the instant it braked. 2 out, ball cap and hood. 00:11, they tugged a black lockable tote. 00:18, a third came from inside and peeled the door. The door flashed just enough light to put a spark on a square watch. 00:25, they staged at the side bench, the angle I'd plotted, and a thick envelope changed hands. The GoPro saw it. I could almost hear paper rasp, a thin frequency only mechanics separate from 10 kinds of vibration. Square watch nodded, the others laughed without sound. Faces stayed blocks of dark, but one thing didn't. A key fob on the cap guy's ring, an R nested in saw teeth, same shape I'd glimpsed in Linda's hand last night. My stomach tied. If I broke cover now, I'd have a sloppy tackle, a room temperature argument, and a handful of words later labeled misunderstanding. I needed layers, chain, witnesses. 00:32, they pushed the tote out, lights blinked, the pickup reversed like a fish back into murk. I counted 10, 20, 30, then drifted from my post to the drawer. Slower than habit, I slid it open, plucked the card, pocketed it, and fed a blank into the same slot. 00:38, I logged in a whisper. Card swap 00:38. My back was soaked, hands steady. I've turned bolts where half a turn wrong shakes an airframe apart. A memory card won't make me tremble. 01:05, break room, card and laptop. The clip unrolled in graphite bands, cut up laughter, paper, keys, faces mush, watch sharp, square face, twin hands like arrows pointing out. I froze the envelope frame, blew it up. No lettering, but the wrinkle along the flap was the kind that happens when the payload is cash, not paper. I exported that frame with timestamp. 01:22, I hashed the folder and penciled. Hash 01:22. Torque rule, trust the number, not your feel. I reopened the spoof chain and burrowed into the headers. Relayed through a forwarder, odd IP. Replied a spoof to look like our org, one character off. People bet if it looks close enough, humans won't see the seam. Airplanes don't forgive that. Misroute a line, pressure drops. Humans do, especially when a very calm voice narrates. 02:10, I shut down. Night gripped bone. I let myself sit 5 quiet minutes and watch the ragged constellations still up over the ramp. No one rescues you from procedure. You rescue yourself or you build the crew. I needed someone who treats chain of custody like scripture, who knows a hash isn't a breakfast skillet, who won't take a frame without context and testimony. Notebook into pocket. Lights out. Before I left, I walked the old rack, the dust-clean rectangle where the wings box had sat. I laid my palm on the shelf, cold like skin of a cooling nacelle. I didn't speak loud, just breathed. Mom, I'm on the right vector. 02:28, door locked, time logged. Outside, grit hissed across tarmac like rattle cans. I headed for the lot, tomorrow's route already compiled. Twin backups, self-mail, seal the old card, and find that retired JAG the VFW bar keeps name-dropping. I had the paper rasp of 00:25. Now I'd roll it into steel. At 07:30, I carried 2 externals to the mom and pop tech shop just outside the gate. The owner, calloused fingers, guitar on the wall, grinned. Clone and checksum. I nodded. By 07:52, command lines spilled clean. The hash marched across the screen like coordinates on a flight map. I screenshotted, printed, signed, time-stamped. Each clone slid into a zip bag. RB evidence / copia 0752 and copy B 0801. Copy B went straight into a mailer addressed to the P.O. box Valdez had loaned me. Not romantic, but I've learned there's no miracle like ink in the right boxes. At 0910, I hit the base chapel, small as a cedar jewelry box in a square of grass, stained glass casting cool green on the steps. Chaplain Reed was pouring coffee, sleeves rolled, a little wing tattoo peeking out. "I need to talk off the unit record," I said. He listened without filling the silence. "Tape, paper, time." I nodded. He dialed. "Old friend out of the system, remembers every inch of it." At 0937, a silver-haired man in a softened suit walked in. "Lawson," he said, scanning my envelopes the way inspectors hunt typos. "Tell it chronologically. Keep your time format tight." I laid it out on the long wood table, printed LES roster photo, locker seal shot, email headers, the SD card in an antistatic sleeve, pencil checklist, hash printout. Lawson placed his fountain pen perfectly parallel to his cup. "First, chain of custody," he said, voice flat as a runway. "Label every object, time-stamp it, record who touched it. Don't barehand their envelopes, we don't need our prints in their mess. And Morgan, don't go it alone." He handed me 2 red seal evidence bags. I slid in the card and wrote, "SD card / GoPro, captured 0025, sealed 0948, Eva M." He nodded. "Good." At 10:20 SM, SGT Valdez arrived with Sharpies, tape-numbered tags. He barely spoke. He pulled a portable whiteboard, wrote timeline in block letters. Left column, less 1240, roster 1415, email 1842, clip 0025. Right column, Lawson's neat hand, objects, copy A, copy B, hash print, SD card, screenshots. I snapped the board, the weight in my chest eased 1 notch, like a wheel set settling on the center line. At 11:05, A1C Harper poked in, half inside the door like she might scuff a sanctuary. "Ma'am," she whispered, "my LES says processing, but my account's empty." Lawson's voice softened a half step. "Got a statement? Print it. Closed-toe shoes. Log the time. Don't sign anything they slide at you." She nodded, eyes wet. I tapped her shoulder, the kind of touch I wish I'd gotten as a brand-new airman. "Lunch 12:00 DFAC," I said. She retreated, relief and fear braided together. By 12:30, we shifted to a war room, a modest rental read lined up. On the wall, a half-drawn money flow map. Pytel and I would connect later. Lawson handed me a dumb flip phone. "Use this for the case so your personal logs don't cross-contaminate, and keep a paper journal. When the machine dies, paper lives." In his eyes, I saw a field kitchen calm, not cozy, but the place that keeps people upright. At 14:05 MS. Patel swept in tote bag, round glasses, quick feet. 30 minutes, she said, laptop open, water poured. "Nothing leaves my machine yet. I'm pivoting re-enlistment bonus across the wing." Cells lit like taxiway lights, names, dates, amounts, status, receiving accounts. She filtered, processed, not received. 4 names surfaced. "I'm under an internal NDA, she said evenly, "but if it smells criminal, I'm obligated to route to Inspector General." Lawson nodded. "We don't block that, we preserve shape." Patel glanced at me. "You pull your statement?" "Locked, account owner only," I said. "Then we go sideways," she replied. She showed me how to request a watermarked screenshot from my bank, ugly but denial proof. I sent it to a fresh case inbox. A minute later, received 1422. On the whiteboard, Valdez arrow DFAS right arrow Ridgeline Productions LLC. I studied that arrow like a foreign flight path slicing our airspace. "Ridgeline is the event partner," Patel asked. "The name's on a key fob with an R," I said. Lawson wrote. LLC link, verify owner, charter base contracts. At 15:10, Reed brought a bakery box, his wife's cookies. We ate standing, eyes pinned to the board. Some wars are quiet, but they make your hands shake just the same. I told them about the Wings box gone missing. Lawson tilted his head. Family tokens become leverage. If it's in the LLC's warehouse, that bridges family Wilta money flow. Heat rose in my throat. I'll find it, I said. At 16:40, we audited the chain again. Lawson tightened my notes from 09:48 to 09:48:12. Seconds matter. He opened a drawer and produced a baby-sized powder kit. If they hand you an envelope, don't wipe it, bag it, preserve it. But he raised a finger. Don't try to out-con the con, we'll make them talk. How? I asked. Dinner, he smiled. People who worship paperwork always suggest settling over a meal. Their guard drops. You attend, record legally, and let them say names and times. Don't argue, nod. Ask for instructions on how to sign correctly. I checked the wall clock, 17:05. Somewhere the chapel bell chimed twice like knuckles tapping a nose cone before toe. We packed the evidentiary box, sealed the card. Reed's hand rested on my shoulder one beat enough to push warmth through cloth. Valdez squared the chairs. Lawson slid a thin card across. If they press you, say I need my advisor to review and stand up. Don't sign. Don't let them control the story's pace. I filed the card. The sentence looped in my head like a pre-flight call-out. At 18:20, Harper texted, Linda's inviting you to dinner tomorrow, 18:00. Heard her in the hall. I met Lawson's eyes. He simply nodded, approach light steady. I replied to Harper, thanks. Lunch with me at 12:00. I wanted her close enough to feel the net we were weaving against Linda and Briggs's invisible zip ties. Driving back at 19:05, I swung into the VFW lot, low wood building, tired neon. In there, people tell stories with gravel voices and prove them with rolled sleeves. A graybeard glanced at my hash print and chuckled. Back then we called that nailing the wind. I laughed for the first time all day. A country song sputtered into its chorus. I shut my eyes a beat and pictured the blue taxiway line unspooling. Tomorrow was dinner. A beautiful trap lets the fox think it hung the snare. At 19:40, I eased my door open. On the bookcase, the dust-clean rectangle was still there, the ghost of a wing that had just lifted. I locked the evidence box in my drawer and wrote one more line. Plan, 1 dinner 18:00, 2 lift prints from envelope, 3 prompt ridge line and Briggs, 4 ask for how to sign so they reveal process, 5 don't sign. At 20:02, I blew out the candle on Mom's little shelf, listening to wax tick as it cooled. In that thin dark, I saw the 2 silver wings on her old flight suit, small beacons waiting for someone tuned to the right frequency. Tomorrow, I'd tune to it. 18:00. The wall clock gave a thin tap, the kitchen went gold, and the air sugared with BBQ sauce while a little radio rasped an old country tune. I slid my phone into my inner pocket, recording armed since 17:58, screen dark, no telltale blink. Linda plated like a TV host hitting minute 15, measured smile, neat ponytail, striped apron without a flaw. Sit, honey, she cooed. We'll eat, then finish that paperwork. I'm exhausted with forms. I nodded as if I hadn't memorized Lawson's line, let them talk. Dad sat at the head, the lamp throwing a heavier beard across his jaw. He cut ribs, eyes straying to the back door. I forked a bite and counted like I was on headset. 1 inhale, 2 exhale, 3 swallow. Good, I said flat. What's your marinade? Linda smiled. Family recipe, but the best course tonight is finishing the papers. Here, she set a cream clipboard in front of me, smooth stock metal corner clip catching the light. Showtime. I lifted it barehanded, rotated it under the lamp so my palm pressed the clip a few seconds, print placement, then set it where the overhead lens could glint off the steel. "Show me how to sign it right," I said, shy daughter voice. "Exactly." She slid out the first page. "This is the bonus authorization. Sign here and here," fingernail tapping. "Write it exactly like last time." I swallowed to bury a forming smile. "Last time, where did I sign? I forget." "DocuSign," she snapped. "I sent it from my secondary email. Don't make this messy." I tilted my head. "Which email? I only use my unit address." "Don't mix family with the Air Force," Linda cut in, turning to Dad. "Daniel, tell her." His knife stalled midair. "Sign," he whispered. "Get it done." I uncapped the pen and laid down a crooked test flourish, deliberately skewing the final upswing. Whitaker would need that. Linda frowned. "Not quite, softer on the tail." I feigned helpless. "Then I print my full name above." "Yes," she said, procedural to the point of forgetting restraint. "And date it, it's 1807. I flicked my eyes to the clock. 1807. The recorder caught the stamp clean. "Wait," I said, pulling my hand back. "Let me read." I skimmed phrases like temporary authorization, disbursement via partner, event facilitation. Ridgeline Productions LLC sat in the recipient line like a foreign runway on a home map. I tapped it the way a crew chief taps a suspicious fastener. "Ridgeline's the partner." "Yes," Linda said, thin smile. "They're doing an internal air show. They front funds, DFAS reconciles later. Briggs says next week it's done." I raised my head slowly. "Briggs says?" TSGT Briggs, he talks with me directly. You just sign right and the system purrs." Dad sipped beer, his hand trembled like a safety pin in crosswind. "Dad," I said softly, "I do not remember agreeing." Linda laughed. "Everyone's fried after TDY. I arranged it in your stead. You're just re-signing to match DFAS cadence." From the radio, a singer's note sagged short. The same over-poured perfume from the warehouse threaded the sauce and made the kitchen feel like a stage set. I edged closer and asked it like a recipe secret. "If I sign, when does money move?" "Monday," Linda said. "Ridgeline needs it to load in. Relax, Briggs is backing it." "Load in at what time?" 21:30, she blurted. I set the pen down and heard my heartbeat count it. 21:30 load in. The scribbled post-it from the warehouse flared in my head like a sparkler. I smiled, demure. "Let me practice again, hands shaky." She offered her pen. I gripped the barrel a second longer, letting sweat salt the surface. Then I signed a lazy loop on the scrap sheet she'd laid beside the forms. "Great," she said. "Now the real one." "1 minute," I said. "Need my glasses." I stood and drifted past the window. Outside, Linda's SUV dozed under the tree. The hatch wasn't fully latched. A sliver of metallic box flashed when the wind lifted the leaves. The temperature dropped in my veins. I went back smiling. "To be safe," I said, "I'll initial the corner of each page." "Whatever," she shrugged, but her eyes brightened like a gambler hitting a post. I rotated the folder so my palms stroked the clip again, then planted my thumb on the bottom corner of the last page, 3 count, and lifted away. "Mind if I shoot a pic for my advisor?" I asked, airy, her eyes flicked. "What advisor?" "A chaplain's friend just checks wording." "No need," she smiled tight. "I guarantee." I nodded. "I know, and procedure says we don't turn family into legal risk." At 1829, Dad put the knife down and covered his mouth with his hand. "Linda, stop," he said, almost inaudible. She squeezed his shoulder. "It's fine." I stacked the pages into the cream envelope, smoothed the edge, prints intact. "I'll let them review then sign," I said. "Tonight," Linda pressed. "Don't miss the window." I looked her in the eye. "I'm not signing tonight." The air shrank a hand's width. The radio snapped off. The minute hand climbed to 18:30. Wind pushed the back door seam. I stood, hugging the envelope like a checklist. "Thanks for dinner," I said. "I'll do dishes." Linda snatched bowls. "I've got it." She wiped the table until it reflected, then cracked the back door. I followed, pantomiming a trash run. Outside smelled of dry dirt and thin gas. I glanced at the SUV hatch through the gap. The wooden box and the tiny brass wings sat winking. My breath caught. 1920 evening light sliced the hatch and painted the lid a stripe of gold. I eased half a step back, lifted my phone like checking texts, and snapped a long shot. The lens quivered, but the glint landed. Back inside, I tossed it casual. "You keeping my box in the car?" Linda tilted a smile. "Safer there, you'd misplace it." "Can I look for a second? I miss Mom." "Later," she said, smile shutting like a lid. I nodded, slid the envelope into a canvas pouch, and zipped it loud. "I'm stepping out," I said. "Sending this to the advisor." "Right now," she arched. "Yep," I lowered my voice like a confidant, "so we're clear for Monday load-in." Satisfaction flickered in her eyes. "Good." 1932, the door clicked behind me, sky going purple. I stood by the SUV one extra beat, then walked on. In my head, the checklist lit like runway bulbs, audio secured, prints placed, admissions captured, times locked, box cited. I texted Lawson, dinner done. She named Ridge Line plus Briggs, envelope handled. Box in trunk 1920. Delivered at 1934. I pocketed my hand around the paracord. Some future 2110 would come collecting, but right now the loaner's AC purred. I buckled in, watched the sunset score a line across the windshield, and turned the radio low. Just enough to remember dinner's end. Grills go cold and traps stay behind. 32 clean minutes on tape. 0810 the next morning, Lawson walked me into a room that smelled like old paper and ink. Framed signatures lined the walls, straight, slanted, heavy, featherlight, an airshow of pen strokes. Dr. Whittaker came out in a white shirt, metal frames, movements precise as a steel rule. "Morgan?" he asked, voice just above a murmur. I nodded. He motioned to place last night's authorization on the glass and the wobbly practice signature I'd done on purpose. At 0814, he dropped a raking light and slid a lens across. 4 silent minutes then. "This signature is forged," he said. "Your tail's stroke normally crosses the axis. Here it stops short like a copier afraid of the margin. Pressure breaks twice, tells me it's an unfamiliar hand." Something inside my cracked ribs finally felt braced. Lawson lifted the signed report, tapped it toward me. "Silver bullet number 1. 0905. We patched MS. Patel into the war room. Her spreadsheet bloomed on screen like taxiway lights. "Filtering processed, not received," she said. "I get 4 names: Morgan, A1C Harper, Esara Dunn, SSGT Pacheco. Receiver column says Ridgeline Productions, LLC. At 0907, she flipped to a second sheet. "Pivot by approver. TSGT Colton Briggs appears on 3 routes, except yours. Which road an exception authorization path?" The air thinned for a beat. Lawson printed the names on the whiteboard, Harper, Dunn, Pacheco, in the same deliberate graphite cadence I use in the hangar. "Silver bullet number 2, he said softly. "Now we have a pattern." 10:20 Valdez arrived with a clip-on body cam and fresh nitrile gloves. "If you see anything," he said, voice warm without a smile, "don't touch. Shoot it, time it, pull metadata." I pocketed the camera. It had just enough weight to remind me I wasn't alone. Outside, desert wind sandblasted the VFW sign. The neon made a tired sizzle. 14:45, Patel texted. "Got the certificate of formation for Ridgeline. Warehouse address on the industrial fringe, Zone 3. Owner, Kara Sloan." Lawson set a compass on the map, tapped. "Event prop warehouse." If your wooden wings box is in there, it ties family will to money flow. The words collided in my head like counter-rotating fans. 20:55, we rolled onto the dirt lane by the warehouses. The moon was thread-thin. Sodium lamps smeared everything the color of old tea. Bay C-14 had a scuffed white streak on the roll-up. Trivia, unless you've seen the same streak in a GoPro frame when a black lockable tote trundled past. 21:02, Valdez killed the headlights. Lawson murmured, "Side door left, dome cam on the corner, stay outside its cone." I clipped on the body cam, dropped my cap brim. Heart slow, steady breathing, the crawl under an airframe pace that keeps your flashlight from shaking. 21:13, a familiar SUV idled up. Color, wheels, engine cadence I could peg blind. Linda stepped out, heels stamping cop on concrete. Beside her, a compact woman with a straight bob and clipboard, Kara Sloan. Lawson and I tucked behind pallet stacks. "They'll open," he whispered. "You shoot from distance. Zoom matters less than exif." 21:19, Kara clicked a remote, the door crept, warm plastic hand varnish air rolled out. Linda muscled in a locked black tote, a twin to the one from 00:18 on the GoPro. At 21:23, in that nicotine yellow pool of light, I saw it. Shelf 3, second tier, my wooden box with the brass wings plate. My throat burned like I'd inhaled raw bleed air. Flip phone out, silent shutter. I took 3 frames, composing so the C-14 placard lived in the upper right, then slid half a step to snag the warehouse clock, minute hand on 21:24. Lawson brushed my elbow. "One close-up," he breathed. I edged left exactly 1 floor tile, zoomed until the wings caught a sickly blue glint from sodium. 21:25, I dropped the phone. Every cell wanted to sprint, yank the box down, hold it to my ribs. Checklist hammered the urge flat, don't touch. Photo plus witness beats fingerprints you can't explain. 21:27, Linda Takara, satisfied host voice. Monday 21:30 load in. Check the advance again for me. Briggs promised we're covered. Kara nodded. Contract reads clean. We just need proper authorization. Linda smiled, mic check small. My rib twinge flared. The perfume from that first night crawled up my nose. Lawson tugged me back a half step enough. I squeezed one last frame over Linda's shoulder as she shut the SUV hatch. The corner of my box winked and vanished. 22:05, back in the war room, I popped the flip phone card, exported the images, and pulled the metadata. Exif rolled out. 21:24:11 GPS 34, 6N-106, 2W device, flip phone model 2009. Lawson's mouth ticked. God loves ugly phones. We printed a contact sheet, circled frames in red, captioned, Wings box, shelf 3/tier 2, C-14, 21:24, Linda present. I signed, Lawson signed, Valdez signed. Patel's email chimed. Draft memo opened, internal fraud indicators found. Brief for IG ready, pending physical corroboration. 22:40, I opened audio dinner 1800. Forks, radio twang, Linda's voice. Ridge line fronts for load-in, Briggs is backing it. Lawson bobbed his head like to a practiced chorus. We have a verbal admission plus forged signature forensics, Patel's pivot and the box photos. Enough structure to force a formal response, maybe before criminal referrals. He looked at me. Ready for the mediation? I swallowed. If ready means my hands don't shake, no. But aircraft still take off in crosswinds. 23:15, I stood on the porch with a hand on my paracord. The night etched a silver seam along the horizon. Mom, in memory, squinted into sunlight and pinned wings to a collar. Fly your line, she used to say, but trust your ear. My ear heard paper, locks, the warehouse clock at 21:24. I went inside and wrote the roll-up. 1. Forensic fake. 2. Pivot 4 victims, Briggs en route. 3. C14 photos, metadata solid. 4. Dinner audio admissions. 5. Request base legal session 15:20 Friday. 23:32 the flip phone buzzed unknown number. 1 text. Tomorrow 21:10 warehouse section A. Finish it. My heart missed half a beat. The sentence was as cold as a sheet metal edge. Lawson read over my shoulder, then gave one slow, grave nod. You're not going alone, he said, and we won't finish the way they mean. I set the phone among the papers, photos, hashes, signatures, timeline, everything lined up like a formation before review. Somewhere a fan hummed like an auxiliary power unit. Somewhere ahead, another 2110 waited. I breathed in until my chest felt like canvas filling. The runway was still there, straight, long, and this time I wasn't running it solo. 15:20. The conference room at base legal felt like the inside of a safe. Air-conditioned, cold, rectangle table, water bottles, projector. Lawson sat on my left, fountain pen squared with his folder. Opposite us, Kara Sloan from Ridgeline with a glossy clipboard like a shield. TSGT Briggs, arms folded, shirt seams pulled tight. And Linda, angled just off-center, her perfume leaking into the room like a thin fuel line. The base legal rep kept it spare. Internal mediation, no crosstalk, evidence enters in order. I pressed both palms to my thighs to quiet the shake. The minute hand slid to 15:21. Lawson nodded. We start with money. He threw my 1240 LES and bank screenshot on the screen. Status processed. Funds did not land in SSGT Eva Morgan's account. He tapped my watermarked statement. Instead, the ACH shows a recipient, Ridgeline Productions LLC. Kara shifted. That's a fronted advance per hour. Lawson lifted a finger, calm as a runway. We'll reach contract. This is the number. Next email. He laid down the printed headers, hopped through a relay, odd reply to. Sender address is a spoof, one character off her unit account. It does not belong to Morgan. Linda's mouth twitched. Kids use a dozen emails. Base IT confirms no such address exists in the system, Lawson said. 15:26 I caught Briggs touch his square watch like he was checking his pulse. Click. On the wall bloomed the 0025 GoPro frame. Side bench in the hangar, shadows cut across, a thick envelope passing hand to hand, the square watch kicking a small flare. The faint rasp of paper seemed to slice the room. Recorded at 0025, hashed at 0122, Lawson said. Chain of custody starts 09:48:12 next morning. He set the hash print beside the sealed USB. Base legal scribbled a note. Briggs cleared his throat. Paper changes hands and hangers, all the... Lawson didn't look up. Paper rarely breathes like that. Now, signature. Dr. Whittaker leaned forward a row behind me as Lawson slid his report across. Conclusion. Forgery. Morgan's natural tail stroke crosses the axis. On this authorization, it dies early. Pressure breaks twice, marks of an imitator. Linda tapped one nail, a tiny, brittle click. She practiced last night, she said, thin smile. To sample it, Lawson replied, voice gone winter. And you coached her to write it just like last time. Here's the 18:00:18:32 dinner audio. He pressed play. Linda's voice filled the room. Ridgeline fronts for load-in. Briggs is backing it. The name hit the table like a bolt dropping into a steel tray. 15:33 the room sealed another inch. MS. Patel spun her laptop around. Wing-wide pivot on bonuses, she said. 4 airmen read processed, not received. Morgan, A1C Harper, SR Dunn, SSGT Pacheco. Internal route shows TSGT Colton Briggs on 3 approvals. except Morgan's, which used an exception authorization. She slid the printouts over, names lined like a four-ship yanked off center line. Briggs leaned in. I approved per procedure. Patel looked up. What procedure routes a personal bonus through an event LLC? Lawson didn't wait for an answer. Final exhibit. He keyed up the 2124 photo. My mother's wooden wings box perched shelf 3, tier 2, bay C14. The corner held the C14 placard. The warehouse clock read 21:24 and the exif printout stamped GPS 34. 6N-106. 2W, the second frame, zoomed, caught the little brass wings flashing. Linda tipped forward, then reclined, jaw edging up. This box, Lawson said, is my client's family property. At 1920, it sits in MS. Linda's trunk. At 2124, it sits in Ridgeline's warehouse. We didn't touch it. We photographed it. On tape from dinner, MS. Linda names Monday 21:30 load-in, which matches a scribbled note. 21:30 load-in collected at warehouse section A. He laid his hand flat. MS, Linda, do you deny that's your voice? Linda kept her mouth shut. Her perfume thickened like smoke. Kara's knuckles went white on the clipboard. She attempted a smile. We're open to a settlement. Base Legal cocked an eyebrow. Before that, explain why bonus funds ever traveled through your LLC, why a service member's personal property sat in your warehouse, and why an approving NCO is in this room. Briggs popped half out of his chair, sat again like someone yanked his parking brake. I was relaying paperwork, he said, eyes settling on his watch, per a request. Whose? Lawson asked. Silence. The minute hand reached 15:39. Very well, Lawson said, voice dropping. Protective measures. He slid a stack across. Freeze all transfers to Ridgeline tied to bonuses. Return the box to its owner. Issue no contact to MS Morgan. Bar Linda Morgan from base absent a hand-signed pass from base legal. Forward MS. Patel's packet to the Inspector General. Kara shut her eyes half a beat, exhaled. Ridgeline will reimburse immediately to SSGT Morgan's account plus fees. Base legal noted. Entered. Pending verification. Linda's fingers clutched the chair until her nails went white. My father wasn't in the room, thank God, but the memory of him swaying with pliers pressed through the glass of my mind. 15:44, the door cracked. 2 security forces airmen waited in the hall like a pair of parentheses. Base legal nodded. Based on submissions and risk of evidence interference, we are temporarily suspending TSGT Briggs's access pending investigation. As for Linda Morgan, a base no-contact/no access order is effective immediately. Briggs barked, "This is mediation." "Yes," the rep said, tone never rising, "and mediation doesn't preclude safety." An officer stepped forward, palm out. Briggs hesitated, then surrendered his CAC. I didn't feel triumph, just the quiet click of a loose fastener finally torqued to spec. Lawson turned to me. "Anything further?" I stood, fingers laced to steady themselves. "I want the box returned today. 17:00, I said. And the bonus routed to my account, and to Harper Dunn Pacheco, the people shoved off their runway." I met Linda's eyes. "And I want Daniel, my father, left alone. No texts, no family fixes, no 2110 orders." Her mouth flattened. A flash of heat in her eyes blew out as fast as a match in wind. 15:52, the temporary memo was signed. Kara made calls on the spot. Patel shot a secure to IG. Lawson packed the sealed USB, photos, signature report, each motion so practiced it looked graceful. Standing, I heard my breathing louder than the AC for the first time. The clock ticked to 15:55. I thumbed the paracord at my wrist and felt the groove where the knot always sits. In the corridor, security walked Briggs ahead. His footsteps came steady, no longer in a leader's cadence. Outside the glass, slanted sun and the far taxiway still glowing blue. On the grass, Lawson slowed. "A climax," he said, almost smiling. "Isn't who shouts, it's evidence in alignment." I nodded. In my head, 18:00 dinner, 21:24 warehouse, 00:25 GoPro, 08:14 forensics, all of it locked into a single runway. Not perfect, but safe for takeoff. At the hall's end, Reed waited with 2 coffees. 17:00, he said. "The box." I answered, "Then clean runway." The minute hand fell on 15:58. I opened the door, light rushed in, the dry sun hit my face, and in my ribs something made a small sound, not pain, but a latch finally dropping into place. 16:32, I stood in the Palo Verde shade outside Base Legal, palm on my paracord like it was a phantom yoke. I'd spoken in numbers, strokes, metadata all day. When quiet finally came, my hands still trembled the way they do after a crosswind landing. Lawson said, 17:00, they'll bring the box. I nodded, watching Reed's reflection pace the lobby with 2 coffees. 16:47, a gray van nosed up to the curb. Kara climbed out with a security forces airman. She cradled a black plastic tote like stage property. Everything in this story had been a prop until it was forced back to its rightful part. 16:59, in a side room by the lobby, the officer opened a receipt log. Kara lifted the lid. Old wood breathed out, dry and warm like a winter hangar waking under lights. There it was. The wooden box, brass wings, plate dimmed by dust, hairline scratches. I knew the way I know my own hands. 17:00, my pen touched paper, received. I didn't open it. I set the box on the table and laid my whole hand over it, squeezed once, same way I knock a nose cone before toe. "Thank you," I said, not looking at Kara. She nodded, lips pinched, stepped back. Linda wasn't here. The room was blessedly free of perfume. I breathed and my lungs opened fully for the first time since 21:10 that night. 18:05, Patel texted. DFAS reversed, crediting Morgan/Harper/Dunn/Pacheco. Bank to update. I waited like you wait for taxiway lights to flick on. 18:41, the banking app buzzed. Incoming ACH, re-enlistment bonus. One thin line of text and the concrete slab on my chest rolled off. I screenshotted, sent it to Harper. 18:43, she replied with crying emojis, then called, laughing through tears. DFAC 1930, I told her. We'll talk paperwork. After I hung up, I opened the box. Mom's wings lay tucked into the old velvet, their metal glow like an old star. In my head, she laughed, and something in my ribs found the kind of brace no med school teaches. 19:35, the DFAC was quiet. White light even, trays skittering like a metronome. Harper hunched over her plate like a new recruit on day one. I slid her a pencil checklist. Photo the LES, the roster, everything, build an evidence folder. Email yourself copies, 2 backups. Stamp time in HHMM, never sign blind, call a counselor. She nodded hard. Valdez leaned in. Add tell your wingmen don't drag a heavy airframe alone. She smiled. We ate like storm survivors, small bites, steady breath. 2020 base legal emailed orders. No contact Linda Morgan. Access suspension TSGT Colton Briggs. Referral Inspector General. Hold contracts with Ridge Line. I forwarded to Lawson, then stepped out to the stoop. Desert wind combed the grass. I texted Reed. Tomorrow 09:00, can you host a short session for new airmen? He replied instantly. Room booked. Name. I looked at Mom's wings in the box, thought of the blue line down a runway, of kids like Harper waiting for a guide light. I typed, runway light. 22:02, the house was still. I returned the wooden box to its dust-clean rectangle, this time settling a black cloth beneath. 22:10, the phone buzzed. Daniel. I drew a breath. "It's me," Dad rasped, voice wobbling between shame and relief. "I'm sorry." I sat, palm on the lid. "Dad," I said, "tomorrow we see Reed. Then I'll get a base clinic doc to evaluate you, and rehab, shorten, then stop." The other end held for 3 long beats, then exhaled like a bolt freed after years. "Okay." I wasn't there to torque him, I was there to hand him the torque wrench. 22:10, he whispered. "I'll remember this time." "Me too," I said. "From now on, 22:10 is when we turn off the lights and let things be." Next morning, 05:30, the sky was enamel blue. I hit the flight line early. The blue edge lights still blinked like gentle animal eyes. I tapped my jet's nose twice, listened to the bright ring in the skin. No strobes, no siren, just wind and a white stripe sipping dew. I spread my hand to the wingtip. Cool seeped into my palm, under my breath as if to Mom, "I'm still here." 09:00, the chapel meeting room held 10 chairs. Harper, Dunn, Pacheco, and 3 new kids filled the front row, eyes wide. I drew the arrows that used to steal my sleep. DFAS right arrow personal account, how to spot a spoof, how to read a header, how to save a hash, how to decline politely. Reed passed out the bold runway light, checklist. Lawson sat in the back, counting each item, giving the small nod that means torque is good. I told my story not as victory, but as a tear-down manual. Remove each bolt, keep order. Don't snap tabs, clean, reassemble, test run. 12:10, Public Affairs asked for a positive story for the internal bulletin. I agreed only on process and teamwork, no faces. I don't need Linda starring again in my life. 14:55, IG called Patel. She transmitted the pivots with her signature. 16:30, Kara emailed. Ridgeline would terminate the contract, return funds, and cooperate. No apology. I didn't need one. What I needed was that blue line staying lit when people roll to the hold short. 19:00, we lit a BBQ behind the chapel. Meat hissed, an ordinary sound that raised goose flesh because it meant peace. Harper brought salad. Valdez joked even hashes deserve sauce. Read about a small light that shows people home. I'm no good at rituals, but my shoulders finally lowered. 20:12, I handed Reed the box. He rested his palm on the lid. "This is your beam, isn't it?" he asked. I nodded. "My mom used it first. I'm using it now." Home at 21:10, I faced the shop door like night one, only my hands were steady. Inside, dark, the fan ticked. I flipped the switch, walked to Section A, laid a clean sheet over the old dust print and penciled 07, no one ends, anyone here. 21:10. I smiled, folded it into my notebook. The door closed with a hinge snick like a lock seating in its groove. Near midnight, 22:48, I sat at my desk, tapping the pencil to my pulse. I opened the box again, lifted the wings, and laid them on my wrist beside the paracord knot. Metal and nylon, one from the past, one to survive the present. I thought of Briggs turning in his card, Linda reading no contact, Kara signing terminate, Dad texting, rehab at 08:30. I thought of Harper's deposit landing, Dunn and Pacheco breathing easier, and of kids I haven't met yet who will ship in fall, sit on plastic chairs, look at the whiteboard and ask, "What's a header?" I'll answer in the voice I built for this. It's the flight path of an email. Learn it so no one ever drags your name off the roster of your own life. I killed the lights at 23:10. Outside, the runway didn't sleep. Blue flickers watched like sentries. I put the box back where it belongs and shut it. No applause, no sirens. Just wind, a house breathing, and one promise I'm keeping to myself. Next mission, keep the runway lit.